So good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well, and welcome to this month's BCS Computer Science talk with the British Computer Society and Cheltenham branch. My name's Joe Cox. I'm a current PGA in cybersecurity at the University of Gloucestershire, and I will be your host for this evening. So today's lecture and today's speech will be done by Professor Alastair Irons of Abertay University. So I'll just give a brief background on who Professor Irons is. So Professor Irons is a Professor of Computer Science and Deputy Principal and Deputy Vice Chancellor at Abertay University in Scotland. Before coming to Abertay in July 2022, he was Academic Director for Digital Education at the University of Sunderland, having previously been the Dean of Faculty of Technology. Prior to joining the University of Sunderland in 2008, he worked at One North East, Northumbria University, and ICI, having moved to the northeast of England from Scotland after graduation in 1984 of Edinburgh University. As became a National Teaching Fellow in 2010, and was a visiting scholar at the University of Cape Town in South Africa from 2013 to 2017, and is currently visiting professor at the University of Johannesburg at the British University in Egypt. His research interests focus on digital education and digital pedagogy. Is that, am I pronouncing that right?
Pedagogy, yeah.
Pedagogy, sorry. But also on digital forensics and cybersecurity. His current research includes digital skills framework for students and academics, digital skills and all digital poverty, as well as cybersecurity in the classroom and learning safely in classrooms for the future. Alastair has over 20 referred journal publications, over 40 conference papers in the last 5 years. His recent book publications include a book on assessment and feedback in 2021, and an anthology of issues in higher education in a post-COVID world in 2022. As his current Vice President of BCS and Chair of the BCS Academy Board, recently re-elected for a second 3-year term, he also sits on the BCS Council and BCS Trustees, and is member of the BCS Academic Accreditation Committee, and is a founding trustee of the BCS Foundation. I hope I've covered everything there, Alastair.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you.
That's fine. So I will now hand it over to you to do your presentation on your topic for this evening. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you for those kind words, and good evening, everybody. I hope you're all okay. If you're down in Cheltenham, I'm sure it's very chaotic given the first day of the Cheltenham Festival. So you've done well to make it online. Delighted to be talking with you this evening. What we'll do is probably talk for about half an hour, 40-ish minutes. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat, and Joe and Abby will monitor those, and then hopefully we'll have a chance for discussion at the end, if that's okay. So, what I'm intending to, you'll notice a nice picture of Abertay University, and there's bits and pieces of Dundee as well thrown in, just to have a little bit of cultural information as well as cybersecurity stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit around the challenges facing the sector, and particularly in higher education in cybersecurity. Talk a little bit around the strength of partnerships in cybersecurity, that strength between industry, business, government agency, and educational establishments, and then talk about how we potentially can develop and support cybersecurity professionals, and what that linkage is between the cybersecurity professional and cybersecurity academic, sort of, kind of. Just thank you, Joe, for the very kind words and a little bit about my BCS background. I've been involved with the BCS, goodness knows, for over a century, certainly into the last century. In way back in the day when I was at Northumbria, I used to teach professionalism and ethics, and that was really the catalyst that got me involved with the BCS. And so I've been a member, now a fellow and chartered IT professional. And if you're not a member or a CITP, I encourage you to do that and join and become part of that community. I've certainly found it really helpful for my career, but very interesting to be involved in. And it's nice to be able to give something back to the BCS and to the community. And my interest in making society a better place using technology sort of reflects what I've done with the BCS. I got involved with the Academic Accreditation Committee over 20 years ago now. I've been a chair twice of that, and did 2-year stints. I'm currently chair of the Tayside and Fife branch. You're all very welcome up to Dundee at any point. Joe mentioned the BCS Foundation, where I'm a founding trustee. I also sit on the Digital Divide Group. Digital poverty and cybersecurity and digital poverty is something that I'm becoming increasingly interested in. But I'm also the BCS rep for IFIP, the International Federation of Information Processing, which is a 60-year-old label, and it reflects how long that group has been around. But that's really the grouping of global computing societies. And they're a very interesting lot to be involved with. And their board is called the General Assembly. And I'm a member of that General Assembly. So it's nice to be involved in the professionalism in a number of ways. I'm going to talk about cybersecurity tonight and the challenges in education. As part of that professionalism, it links into one of the things I'm really interested in is around license to practice. And if we look at the role of the BCS, then that's one of the pillars as we move to consideration of a learned society. But that's maybe another talk for another day. So back to tonight's topic. And we're in a really interesting place in the post-COVID digital world, and of course there are huge benefits of living in a digital world. Who would have anticipated 5 years ago what would have happened with lockdown and how we changed our working practices? Who would have believed even a couple of years ago that generative AI would have had such an impact, and a really interesting impact on cybersecurity, both in terms of defence and indeed attack. But that connected world, a wonderful place, and so many of us, with the exception of those who are in the digital divide, and that's again an interesting topic for another day. You got a slightly different perspective on that online and hybrid environment. But looking at how we embrace technology, Internet of Things, mobile technologies, it goes on and on. All of these are fantastic impact on the way that we live our lives. But, and there is a big but, and that as we become more engaged with a connected, fully digital world, and as we have more and more of our persona in an online digital environment, and as we use systems more and more to do very mundane things to very, very major things, then we are potentially more at danger of attack, more danger of misuse, more danger of compromise. And one of my biggest concerns is that society, what we mean by society, but people that are using technology aren't aware of the threats that might be out there. We are particularly trusting. If it's on a computer, it must be right. If the computer asks us to do something, it must be right. And I'm sure you all get inundated with what looks like very authentic email requests or offers or suggestions. And I'm sure you all use social media, and there are all sorts of exciting things that we can investigate on social media. But of course, the bad guys use these as lures for us to just inadvertently wander into. Uh, every now and again, I find myself thinking, oh, should I be doing this? And I'm probably missing out on all sorts of opportunity because I'm much more reticent in what it is that I do in my online behaviour. I have three, I won't say young children, they're not really young anymore. The baby's out on her second driving licence, so she's just turned 17. The boys are a wee bit older. All through their growing up, I've been stunned at their acceptance of the digital world. And it must be a real pain in their neck as a dad saying, what are you doing here? Or who's that person you're communicating with? Or do you know them? Or is this authentic? And they think that they are unlucky in the parent that they've got, but other kids are unlucky in that their parents aren't aware. So much of society isn't aware of those threats. So our digital environment, what that means, it is a very complicated and complex set of situations we find ourselves in. There is, one of the challenges, and then we'll come on to challenges, but the people who wish to engage in cybercrime, they're not daft. They're very smart, technically sound, technically competent people, and they're motivated to do things that they shouldn't be doing because they see it's a way to whatever kind of criminal they might be, whether it's around in economic benefit, or whether it's around disruption, or whether it's around upsetting the government, or whatever it might be, whatever the motivation, they can focus in and become really, really expert in a single type of attack. So if we then extrapolate that across the whole underclass, digital underclass community, then there are many thousands of different types of attack. As a defender, we've got to be able to defend against all of them, whereas the bad guys only need to be good at one. So that's a challenge. Cyber and cybersecurity, which we tend to use, is actually more than cyber. So the whole threat environment is much more than just cyber, which is great in some respects, but actually quite problematic in others. The digital economy, as you know, is growing. Users demand all sorts of quick, fast, 24-hour access from anywhere, everywhere, and that wonderful as that is, becomes a problem when it comes to cybersecurity. The amount of digital data there is, the amount of information there is, it becomes almost impossible to keep tabs on it. So even if we weren't complacent, knowing when something went wrong would be problematic. Then you add in complacency, and that complacency about personal security and what we share on online, whether it's in social media, whether it's in systems, or whether it's on requests for data, then it just can tweak what we're exposing ourselves to and letting ourselves into. And then, of course, if we become more and more dependent on systems, then we become more and more vulnerable. And you're thinking about big infrastructure systems like utilities, like transport, like the economics and the financial systems. These go wrong, they go wrong big time. So we need cybersecurity. And those of you working in cybersecurity, and assuming that many of you are in the Cheltenham, Gloucester geography, you're in the ideal place. for cybersecurity security jobs and cybersecurity expertise. But it's broadening it out from your locale. I see cybersecurity as a economic and societal priority. And if the BCS is got as one of its pillars, making society a better place for all, then it's incumbent on us to promote and embrace cybersecurity. So thinking about what cybersecurity is for, it's about protecting individuals and businesses, understanding risk, doing risk mitigation, reducing risk, trying to minimize the opportunities for attack. And that can start through good design of systems, good implementation of systems, good use of systems, and a little bit of common sense on top of that. Enabling and building a safe environment. Part of that is through education and awareness raising. And then taking that awareness raising a step further and putting the responsibility for cybersecurity on everybody, and not just folks that are tasked with looking after cybersecurity, not just the people who are the technical gurus in organizations, not just people in organizations, although everybody in an organization, but everybody across society. The good news for those in education is there's a huge demand for skilled cybersecurity colleagues, whether they're graduates, whether they're apprentices, whether they're people reskilling and developing in their workplace. But there's a huge need to prevent, defend, and identify cyber attacks. And as I said, cyber isn't just cyber, and it's not just cyber in the very technical and specific domain of cybersecurity. It's around a whole series of other things around embracing all digital technologies, taking into account artificial intelligence, thinking about data science, thinking about business resilience, thinking about that whole societal set of implications. So, why do we not just have really tight cybersecurity? Well, it's a pain in the neck. And if you're a user of a system, if you are playing a game, computer games, if you're trying to get financial transactions through, if you're trying to get access to somewhere that you want to get access, cybersecurity is just an annoyance. If you're designing systems, then cybersecurity it takes a lot of time to do that. It takes a cost to do it. Then it's going to impact on functionality. It's going to impact on the whole management and smooth running of systems. And then, of course, keeping it up to date, keeping the whole patching systems and patching protocols and processes, keeping the skill set up to date, keeping the awareness up to date can be costly. Cybersecurity solutions not always is the most slick software. Then of course, coming into education, we haven't got enough people to do all the things that we need to do. Broadening out the challenge about why cybersecurity is not applied is that who is really taking responsibility for it? And then of course, in this last point, it freaks me out if I'm honest. I go into many organisations and folks say, you know what, we don't care. It's not going to touch us. No, it's not a risk for us. And you see it in big organisations, but I'm doing a bit of work at the minute with SMEs, and it's even worse in SMEs. They think, the bad guys aren't interested in them because they're so small, and they don't need that skill set to prevent and detect. There's a piece of work done at Lancaster Uni a few years ago now around SMEs, and the stats were pretty stark, and that 25% of SMEs that underwent a cyber attack went out of business in very short order, within a week, 10 days. Another 25% within 6 months. and the remainder had to do an awful lot of work to, continue trading and build up their reputation. And so, it's a big risk if you're not thinking, if you're an SME and you're not thinking about cybersecurity. That's an issue. Mentioned AI, and there's a whole hour's worth of talk just about AI and cyber. So you'd be pleased to know I'm not going to talk about it in any great depth. But from a cyber security professional's perspective, there are a whole set of opportunities around being better at detecting threats, and malicious attacks, by utilising predictive analysis, thinking about how we learn about attacks and apply natural language processing to the cyber environment, thinking about how we might learn about potential attackers, both about their motivations and their skill sets, thinking about how we make the skill set, the toolkit of a cybersecurity professional enhanced by using AI. And then the biggie is, throwing resource at it and computing resource so that we are building a defense that is much, much tougher for people to crack. Before I go on to malicious use, a little bit around the whole computing resource associated with AI, and it is very resource intensive. So we've got a sustainability question and a carbon footprint question to consider, and then of course AI might not be practical for every cybersecurity situation. Then flipping the coin and thinking about what attackers might use AI for, because of course it's not just a tool for the good guys. They can do things around identifying best targets. So what's their return on investment? As I say, these are intelligent people, so they're running their cyber attack business like a business. So they are making judgments about where those targets are. Flipping defense and using it against an organization, actually taking AI and weaponizing it, making it a tool for attack. And then you get into the detail of what AI might be capable of doing and alter attacks and alter attack vectors in mid-attack, which makes it even more difficult for defenders. And of course, that growth and continual movement of the attack vector means that the defense has to continually grow and move and adjust in attack, in mid-attack. So the whole AI in cyber piece is a fascinating and ever expanding, ever growing domain in its own right. So where do we get to with education? Well, the big thing around education, and it's not just about certification, it's not just about qualification, it's not just about award, it's about raising awareness and developing skills of everybody and everybody in society to a greater or lesser extent. So we've got we've got instruments for education in schools and colleges and universities and smartphones, LinkedIn Learning, all sorts of different platforms where we can be using and utilizing the opportunity to develop skills. From a business and industry point of view, I would argue that it's incumbent on us to raise awareness and develop skills for all employees. It's really, really important to identify responsibility and ownership for everybody, and then at different levels and scales throughout the organizations. In society, I think we should all have digital skills. Everybody should have the opportunity and ability to develop digital skills right through from school and all through their life. We then need to take into account the digital divide and what that means, and the whole equity, equality, diversity, inclusivity agenda, and what that means around education and access to education and ability to utilize education. There's also a piece around accreditation. Interesting that the NCSC are pushing government for their own accreditation around programs and the like, how we certify skills, and then, of course, I mentioned at the outset, the notion and concept of license to practice. And license to practice as a computing person, a computer scientist is one thing, as a programmer is another thing, as a cybersecurity professional might be a slightly different thing again. So lots of places that we can do that upskilling. So embedding cybersecurity in the school curriculum, offering cybersecurity as specialisms at undergraduate programs, thinking about degree apprenticeships. One of the things I do for Abu down at Gloucester, I'm an endpoint assessor in the degree apprentice program in cybersecurity. So it's really interesting program and course there. But then how we expand that. One of the things I did at the end of last century was make sure that cybersecurity was a key criteria in all computer science degrees. So it's one of the things as we go out and do BCS accreditations, then we're measuring for the amount of cybersecurity, and not just a cybersecurity module clagged on somewhere in a program, but how we embed cybersecurity in programming, how we embed cybersecurity in database design, how we embed cybersecurity in web design. Everything we're doing as a computing skill, there should be some cyber awareness in there. Currently, I'm trying to look at how we get cybersecurity into the business curriculum. So I believe every business graduate should have, a set of cyber skills or business resilience skills. Whether those two are synonymous, debate and discussion for later, maybe. Then a whole series of things around specialist programs around MSCs and the like around cybersecurity management. Then we've got CPD, opportunities to continue professional development in small chunks, and that can be across the piece. Then a whole set of specialist training opportunities. So the NCSC do a Cyber First program with a whole set of providers, and these are just they're not picking on any and being better or worse than any others. But folks like ISC Square do all sorts of interesting programs. Then there's a whole thing around Cyber Essentials, and of course the ISO standards and all sorts of things out there to try and upskill and show that upskilling interesting space. Here's a wee thing from Abertay. One of the projects we have at the minute is the Cyber Quarter, and that's it's trying to emulate what we've done in Abertay with the games industry, computer games industry, and develop a hub where we then grow that out into a cluster. But this is a piece around getting cybersecurity into the next generation. You won't have come across the bongles. The bongles are a Scottish set of characters for young kids. But the bongles and the crafty crows being the bad guys in this particular situation, developed a book so that it encourages 4 to 7 year olds to think about cybersecurity, introduce them to cybersecurity through storytelling. And this is somebody's harebrained idea. This is something that's come from Education Scotland in partnership with the Scottish government. So really good idea to get these things into the heads of wee folk very, very early. But there are many challenges in education, and it's about getting the right courses and getting those courses to have the right, the curriculum and skill set at the right time. What to include in a curriculum? There are the cyber body of knowledge, CyBOK. Do we think about what the required output might be? How do we get folks talked earlier about the Generation Z maybe not caring so much about this? How do we get them to be interested in cyber security, to come on to cybersecurity courses? How do you manage the expectation? It's not all about the wonderful stuff that you see on telly. It's not necessarily the high profile flashy stuff. There's some some quite hard computer science in there, some quite hard math that you need to get to grips with. So managing that expectation, how we staff, how we universities, colleges, and indeed schools get the staff with the right expertise to bring the subject alive is a challenge. There's a challenge around the research agenda, not least the whole thing around trusted research and the whole a lot of things going on there. Then we've got the fact that universities are potential targets. It might be around IP or trusted research, but student data is actually quite valuable. The disruption to universities, particularly around about September time or around July time for exams and graduation, September time around enrolment. The bad guys know ransomwares can be lucrative. And then, of course, in education, we're balancing easy access and usability with cybersecurity protection. So it's an interesting environment to be in. But one of the big things around education and higher education, college education, is how we link in with industry to work together. So that's the first of my references to partnership, and you'll see more of partnership in a second. So the notion of partnership really is the idea about bringing stakeholders together to look at different lenses, look through different lenses, look at the challenges in a different way, identify opportunities, taking different skill set and marrying them till we maximize that expertise, how we take that expertise and shape and implement policy and practice, and how we share best practice, how we collaborate, how we work together, how we look at strengthening the defenders' environment and being stronger together. A couple of examples. Though I work in Dundee and I still live in the northeast of England, I spent a lot of my time in the last 30 odd years in the northeast of England, in fact, the last 40 odd years in the northeast of England. And some examples of partnership in operation. So in the mid-90s, we set up a thing called the Northeast Fraud Forum, which was a partnership between business, industry, police forces, and higher education. And that was ostensibly to raise awareness about fraud, primarily financial fraud, but all sorts of fraud, data fraud and the like, impersonation and whatnot. But then morphed into digital forensics work, which then morphed into cybersecurity work, which led to the development of a platform. And the Northeast was just one example. This was something that happened across the regions in the UK, where a threat sharing platform where people could put, if they had any evidence of attack, they would warn others around this threat sharing platform. In principle, really nice idea. Actually, very, very difficult to manage for a number of reasons. One, some people put nonsense on it. There was one guy in particular who thought we were under attack from Finland every day, and so that you get false stuff on there. Finland might be quite angry with this, but I don't think they were going to go to war. Right through to the other end of the spectrum, where the people were worried about putting anything on the platform because of the reputational damage to the organisation that they were working for, and it would be seen as a weakness, and that they might lose business, might lose custom, and so it actually was a really difficult thing to manage. Great idea, but really difficult to get that global complete picture. Another example of a partnership we set up across the Northeast, a group called Dynamo, which was an IT cluster of people working in IT, people who utilised IT, people who were in software development or technology, people who were in education, training, and it was a great environment. Again, it's grown from strength to strength. It's been around. We just celebrated our 10th year last year, so it's going from strength to strength. And coming out of that, as one of the strands and themes was a thing called Cyber North, which was, again, a partnership across the piece, specifically looking at cyber awareness, which led to the Northeast Digital Festival and Northeast Cyber Festival. So a whole series of events trying to promote understanding and awareness around cyber security. And then the last one there is a kind of a modern day version of the Northeast Fraud Forum, but with much more structure. And it is the Northeast Business Resilience Centre, set up by the police forces, and not just in the Northeast, but as far down as South Yorkshire, to pool expertise and resource and understanding, and a really interestingly strong partnership with a much broader remit and a much broader membership. So to my own institution, I mentioned the Cyber Quarter when we're talking about the kids' book. And what we're trying to do with the Cyber Quarter, we have a significant amount of money into this, a significant amount of money from the Scottish Government and from the Two Cities deal to underpin the work that we're trying to do here, and be a focal point for existing cyber businesses. We've got the NHS Scotland stock is located in that business, so there are a number of high-profile businesses in that space. We're also trying to grow business and foster new business through enterprise in the curriculum, but actually attract businesses from across Scotland to Dundee. We're also there to support businesses in cybersecurity, and the whole marriage of research and academic work associated with business requirements, business needs. So also the opportunity to get students to go and sit with businesses. So the businesses will run competitions, they'll get involved in assessments, they do many internships. So students go and shadow businesses for a half day a week. They go and do 3-week internships, they do 3-month internships, they do year-long placements. And, so a nice environment of everybody working together. So we've got the physical space, we're trying to attract and retain talent. We're trying to develop this ecosystem, and then we're formalising some of the things from the Scottish Business Resilience Committee into a more kind of nailed down form of governance. This diagram shows that some of the entities associated with that partnership, and shows how we bring in local companies, we bring in our students and graduates, we bring in people from the public, the general public. We link that into SMEs, we link it into larger organisations, we like to get into the academic community. So we're trying to create this ecosystem, or we are creating, and it is working very well, this ecosystem of growth in education, growth in skill set, growth in artefact through partnership, which is it's really exciting to be involved in. So, if we look at the skills gap in cybersecurity, and you think about how we can take that as a problem for partnerships to try and resolve, there are a number of things we can do in terms of looking at the skills gap. We can say, right, pretend it's not a problem, and everyone will just go away. It'll be fine. Stick our head in the sand, be an ostrich, it'll be fine. We can get into a situation where we seek to recruit expertise, and that might be something to do. I suspect that pay inflation would escalate, and that would be you know, a challenge for us all. We can identify and retrain in-house, and that's great. And I'm sure there's lots of things we can do there, and we can do that in partnership. Or we can say, look, let's just look at the whole big picture and really work together to make sure that the business industry, government agencies, universities, colleges, schools, training providers, everybody with a good idea works together as part of that partnership around addressing the big challenges that we have in cybersecurity. So, sorry, I've gone on a wee bit longer than I said I would. But there's some nice pictures of Dundee if you're interested. The Victorian Albert's really lovely. And if you've watched Succession, the Brian Cox did his thing. No relation to Joe Cox. It might be a relation, I don't know. You've said too many vowels to be related to Brian Cox. So there we go. I hope that was useful for you, and I hope you enjoyed that. I'm very happy to take any questions. I don't know if there's people have been typing things in, Joe, or how you want to do this. Or do you all want your tea?
Sorry. Thank you very much, Professor Irons. That was really good. I hope you all enjoyed that. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask Professor Irons? I can't see anything in the chat on my side of things, but if you want to type in a message and we can hopefully see that, or if you want to unmute yourself, you should be able to.
I have a question, and I posted it on the chat, so other people have questions, they can also post it on the chat, or they can unmute themselves and ask questions. So either is fine. So my question is, how can we ensure that students are equipped with both technical skills and the ethical mindset needed for navigate the complexities of cybersecurity effectively? Would a ethical mindset limit their explorability, or yeah?
Good question. That is a really interesting question. And you know, and as I say, that's where I started in this whole journey many moons ago, teaching professionalism and ethics and getting people to do the right thing in the right way. You know, is key and fundamental. Of course, that as we develop cybersecurity skills, as we develop computer forensic skills, as we develop computer science skills, we are potentially tooling up the bad guys. You know, so if you teach people about the defenses in cybersecurity, then you're potentially enhancing their understanding of the weaknesses and vulnerabilities. So, as educators, it's incumbent on us to put forward the ethical use of these tools and techniques and systems and protocols and the like. One of my nightmares, and I've had nightmare for many years around teaching first digital forensics, computer forensics, but then into cybersecurity, is that I get into the press, and you know, one of my students does something very untoward and illegal, and he said, how did you learn about this? He says, oh, Irons taught me. And I go, oh my God. So I put a huge amount of effort into you know, explaining the ethical use of these. I mean, you could argue the same for mechanical engineering. You could argue the same for chemical engineering. You know that you know, once you develop a skill set, then there's the potential for that to be abused. So the only thing we can do, Abu, is to, you know, explain and certify and encourage that ethical awareness and understanding. Good question, though.
Thank you very much.
You should do a PhD in that. Oh, you did. I remember.
Yeah.
Is that a question from David?
We have another question from Chris
Oh,
Bounds in the chat.
right.
Very interested to get your perspective on how digital forensics teaching has changed in the last 10 years. I found your 2014 paper, problem-based learning in digital forensic, very useful while
Hey, God, was that
university.
2014? Bloody
Yeah.
hell. It just feels like yesterday. I was telling Joe about the work that Paul and I had done together. How's it changed? Whoosh.
I thought it was
Well,
interesting, Alastair. It's been 10 years as well since that paper. So
yeah, no, I mean, it's, you know, when I first started in computer forensics, and it was really disk forensics, you know, you had a 20 gigabyte disk and you're thinking, this is taking a long time. 40 gigabyte disks, oh, this is the end of the world. And, you know, it was almost unmanageable. You go into terabytes and, you know, and you think, what is going on here? So in the forensic world, the cost of major technology is decreasing. So that has changed. The variety of devices that can be used and utilized has changed. So phone forensics has changed immeasurably in the last 10 years. The scale of the evidence base has gone through the roof. The notion of cloud forensics is, you know, it just blows it. It becomes almost unmanageable. You then throw into the equation the fact that it goes across jurisdiction. So we used to could be able to, you know, get a crime scene and go, this is your disk, and you've got everything in a bag, so you're in control. That's just not the case now as we're going into distributed computing. Once you throw AI into the mix, the game has changed immeasurably. But it's nice to know that problem-based learning still is there as a technique. It's just the problems are different. So yeah, and it's just changing all the time, and it's the skill set for you know a computer forensics practitioner is, you know, is just huge. Then so you start me off with something completely different. Going into court to try and explain to the instruments of the court and to the jury what is going on, it's so complex. It's so complex that it's almost not worth doing, because it's so difficult to get that message across, and it is worth doing. And so I'm not advocating that we don't do it. But you then have experts, and almost Americanized. You've got for the defence and for the prosecution. Whereas in the UK, of course, it is the word of the instruments of the court. And so they shouldn't really be for the one or the other, but they're popping at each other's levels of expertise, and that just again confuses the members of the jury even further. It's a really good question, and I'm glad you read the paper.
Alastair, yeah, thanks for doing that paper as well. It helped me a lot for my dissertation. So
fantastic. Go on there from James.
Yeah, there is one from James Round. Let's do James Round one first.
The AI.
Thank you very much for that was a great talk regarding the point of AI. How do you think this is going to affect the skills and knowledge that current and future cybersecurity professionals have to do? You see it having a positive impact. Could it further empower more people to get into cybersecurity, or could it lead to the potential for a word being laziness to not understand the issues they are identifying?
No, it's a really good. That is a really good question. I have long worried about what I termed Nintendo forensics many moons ago, about people not understanding the disk geometry around like what it was, the evidence that they were presenting. So they were using something like NCase or whatever, and just go, here's a report, there you are. And I said, well, what does this mean? Oh, I have no idea. It's just been churned out. And so there's always been an issue there. I think what AI does is it potentially increases the scale of that problem. And of course, we need to be, we could turn it on its head and say we need more skilled people, because you've got to not just understand the real reports, you've got to be able to identify nonsense and hallucination that AI devices might be chucking out in terms of the veracity of the validity of a report. So in terms of cybersecurity, is it going to make people lazy? Well, I don't know. I'm thinking that it's going to make the cybersecurity environment more complex, and so you need to be even more skilled to be a cybersecurity professional, because you've got to understand that whole world. Does it mean that low-level folks could be, or low-level tasks could be done by people utilizing AI? Maybe. I don't know. It's a good point. Don't know.
Thank you. That's a really good sort of answer. I mean, yeah, as sort of a cybersecurity consultant, we have to sort of we can use AI to our benefits, but then there are issues around with like using AI just to churn out, again, as you said, reports, and then clients not understanding, or there's misinformation within the report the AI is generated. So I guess my point was regarding of how is that going to have an impact on the future, considering you've seen how technology has already affected sort of the industry already. But I think with AI, it's such a big thing that I don't think we are really aware of the impact that it's going to have yet.
I think you're right, and it's changing so quickly. So if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said, yeah, we need to develop skills in prompt engineering to look at cybersecurity and stuff. And I wouldn't even think about prompt engineering now, because it's changed so quickly that prompt engineering is probably a dead art. So yeah, it's intriguing, and it's an intriguing space to watch. It's an even more intriguing space to try and help raise awareness and educate the practitioners for that skill set development. You know, the good news for all of you under 60 is that there's going to be a huge amount of work for the next few years. You know, we're not going to be out of draft, that's for sure. Good question. Thanks, James.
We have another question from Professor Dr. T. Liu. I'm glad to hear your talk, though wasn't able to follow the whole session. Do you have any suggestion on the tools or sandbox that you would give the students to practice and verify their skills in practice?
It depends. It depends what you want to do. It depends what type of students you've got. It depends what level of students you're working. Depends what is it on a computer science course or cybersecurity course or a business course? Yeah, I mean there are open source materials. There are programs that are really useful if you're looking at the principles. You can. Yeah, there's a whole range of different tools. It would be folly of me to suggest one or t'other. It depends what you want to do and who you're wanting to do it with. Apologies if that sounds like a cop-out, but
hello, Mr. Irons. Yeah, to put it more specific, I was wondering, since your talk is about the intersection of the cybersecurity and AI, since people nowadays are really raising a lot of concerns about how AI impact on cybersecurity and vice versa. So do you think in this intersection there is, or I mean, you are basically leading also the direction of UK education, right? Where are the UK education going in this direction? Do you suggest any tools or vendors or open source libraries that you think that well, the newcomers, the students should at least hear about them, yeah, and better to use them and practice that their skills during the lectures, because I'm also teaching, but I'm just new in this field, right? I've not taught so many years. And I'd always try to find some tools for different classes, of course. I mean, for quantum computing, I'm using IBM qubits. And for cybersecurity, maybe try Hackney or Hack the Box or whatever. But is there any specific tools that you would like to suggest or foster to target the group where the intersection of AI, ethical, responsible use of AI and the cybersecurity?
I mean, I'm not going to tell you any sort of named technology to utilize, or any organisations to engage with. That would be inappropriate. But it goes back to what it is that you're trying to do, and who you're trying to do it with, what the problem is you're trying to solve. I would always, for students, try and break it down into as small an entity as possible, so that they can understand all aspects of the problem that you're trying to get at. In a teaching situation, I wouldn't throw big technology at a problem, because it'll just hide so many of the principles in that big technology. So, yeah. Okay. If you're really interested, we can maybe have I can give you my contact details, and we can have a chat. But it would be inappropriate on a recorded public forum for me to advertise anybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll follow up. Thank you very much.
Right.
Jenna, tips for technical information and non-technical people. That's a really good point. I was very fortunate to work with a colleague in one of the utilities in the northeast of England who had this very problem, and he said, one of a really top level cyber guy, just fantastic. But his biggest problem was talking to his board. And the challenge was that really smart people, but no technical folk on it. The minute he got technical, they glazed over and lost him. But on the other side of the coin, if he did it in words of one syllable, he was deemed to be patronizing. So it's a really tricky balance to think about. I'm talking to a 5-year-old here about the steps, the technical steps, without mocking them. So you don't want to use acronyms. You don't want to use technical jargon. You don't want to use maths or anything to explain them. And it's taking that environment and like talking to your granny and say, this is how it is, but without the patronizing element. So really good question, and one of the many soft skills that we should be teaching our cyber people. Great question. Caleb?
Okay. Yeah, we got this will be the last question before we wrap it up for the evening. So Caleb's asked, is there any resource you follow that touches on the intersection of AI and cybersecurity, a blog, a book, or YouTube channel, or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there's any number of really quite interesting reports out at the minute. If you go into the you know, the big security organizations, the McKinseys, the Kaspersky's and the like, some really good work that they're doing around that intersection. That's a good starting point.